Having a big vocabulary is sort of like knowing how to fight. You don't actually want to use it. You don't want to use your MMA skills, and you also don't want to be using your biggest words on a daily basis. Actually, the only time you really want to be using big words or like rare or unique words is when those words capture something that a common or an everyday word couldn't.
What's going on, my friend? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Real English Radio. I'm your host, Tony Kaizen, and today I'm here to talk to you about one of the most common concerns of ESL learners, and that is their limited vocabulary. All the time, we as teachers get questions like, how do I stop using such basic words? How do I learn more advanced vocabulary? How do I sound more like a native? As many learners confuse having a big vocabulary with being effective communicators. They think the more words I know, the more advanced and intelligent I sound. But this isn't necessarily the case. So allow me to lay out this idea and encourage you to adopt the right mindset for learning how to speak in any language. Now, the first thing we need to address is the idea that the best communicators are those who have an extensive vocabulary, full of sophisticated words, expressions, and idioms. When in reality, the best communicators are those who can express the most complex of ideas with simple language that's accessible to the majority of people. Because great communicators speak with the intention of being understood. And if you're using vocabulary words that aren't typically used by most people, you're naturally going to be misunderstood and run the risk of alienating or losing your audience altogether. And as the young man said in his video clip, it's best to use more specialized, advanced vocabulary when more simple words can't express what you're really trying to convey. Because you may think that using big words, when there's no need to do so, makes you sound smarter and more educated, but it often has the opposite effect. There are many people who will find that kind of thing pretentious and will assume that you're unnecessarily using this advanced vocabulary to show that you're somehow better or superior or that you know so many things, even if that's not your intention. And that's not to say that there's something wrong with having a big vocabulary. In fact, I believe it's something we should all have and be able to use. Because the English language, just like many others, is a rich one. A rich language that not only has tons of very specific words, but also many ways to use those words. And the more words you know, the better and more clearly you can express yourself by saying exactly what you mean. The same way a fighter who knows tons of very specific moves has more ways to beat his opponent in a fight. Now, the key is to develop what we call situational awareness, which is essentially being aware of the context of a situation. Like, I'm not going to talk to millionaire hedge fund investors the same way I talk to some gangsters from the south side of Atlanta. I'm not going to talk to my mother the same way I talk to my best friend at a bar on a Friday night, even though all of those people I just mentioned speak the same language. And it's by practicing the skill of communication that you'll realize that there's a difference between having the capacity to use big words and knowing when and how to apply that capacity effectively. Now, I'm confident that you've understood the main point of the episode by now, but let me take it a step further by giving you some clear examples of using overly sophisticated vocabulary when there's absolutely no reason to do so. So, instead of saying, I find your perspective to be erroneous, you could simply say, I disagree with your opinion, or I think that's wrong. Instead of saying, the congregation proved to be an exercise in futility, you could simply say, the meeting was a waste of time. Instead of saying something like, he's perpetually vocalizing his discontent, you could simply say, he's always complaining about something. Or instead of saying, I'm grappling with ambiguity regarding my subsequent course of action, you could simply say, I'm not sure what to do next. And instead of saying, the establishment boasts a rather salubrious ambiance, you could simply say, the restaurant has a nice atmosphere. So as I said before, there's nothing wrong with having and using advanced words and phrases from your set of vocabulary. There's nothing wrong with that. The key is simply knowing when and how to use them based on the person you're speaking with and the overall context of the conversation. So, whenever you can convey the same idea with both simple and advanced language, it's usually best to keep it simple.